Today we are going to make some sun catchers since summer is here, and these make great gifts or home decor pieces for your house. And I'm showing you a couple of examples of these simple sun catchers. You could use different accent beads. This is a handmade, hand-painted ceramic bead that I've put as the accent. This is a vintage acrylic drop that I put on here. This one is for July 4th sort of celebration with our American flag, and then a pretty blue teardrop. Here I have another hand-painted ceramic bead. Again, adds a beautiful accent, and I have colored faceted crystals so that will reflect the light beautifully. And then we have this one with a beautiful faceted crystal drop, as well as these glass crystals, and this with a peach acrylic drop. So you could use any large drop at the bottom, and then mix and match your beads for the rest of the sun catcher. This is the box of my sun catchers and ornament beads. I keep that separate from the ones that I use for jewelry. Let's see, maybe we start with a heart for the drop. So for this section, maybe we do a beautiful heart like that. That looks pretty. And then let's pick out some colors for the rest of the sun catcher. Maybe about 3 to 5 beads. I'm going to pick out a crystal. See those beautiful colors in there? That will create the prism effect, so we'll get that. And then should we do a red? Maybe do a little rainbow of colors. So red, I have some blues and purples. Since I've used a big piece here, maybe we can use a medium-sized. Oh, that's a pretty bead too. Red, blue. Here's a yellow, and maybe a green. Okay, so those are some pretty colors right there. Let's put this away. Okay, that might be a pretty arrangement right there. Tools you will need: a ruler, a flush cutter, a bent nose or chain nose pliers, needle nose or chain nose pliers, so you need 2 pairs of pliers, and then a round nose or a 6-step bail making plier. I like the 6-step looping pliers because then my loops are more consistent. So this is what I'm going to be using today. You're going to need 20 gauge copper wire to make the knots that connect all of these components together, and 16 gauge copper wire to make this component on the top to hang your sun catcher. So to start, I'm going to work off of the spool. I'm going to slip your accent bead, in this case it's a faceted heart, acrylic heart, to the bottom there. And then I'm going to use my round nose pliers or your loop making pliers, and about 1 inch off, I'm going to fold that wire over, slip the heart up till there and make a U. So this smaller part is going to wrap over the longer wire. So I'm going to fold that over again. So we have that making a loop there. I'm going to hold this down and wrap the wire. I'm getting it started with my hand, and then once the wire is too short to use my hand to wrap, I'm going to hold that wire and press it in with my pliers. So you're just squeezing the wire in to wrap it tighter around the long wire. So you're tucking in the edge. Once that's tucked in, you're going to hold the wraps with your pliers and bend the wire over. And then you're going to hold that long wire between your first and second step and wrap the wire to make a loop around the second step. So that's what it's going to look like. Once you have that, hold that loop in your pliers and wrap 3 to 4 times till you wrap over the previous set of wraps. Okay, and then we're going to snip that wire off with the flush end towards our finished piece, and then use our pliers to tuck that wire in. Okay, and this is the time, if your component is misshapen, you can just adjust that. So there we have our first component, has a knot with a loop to attach it to the next one. Now for the bead, I'm going to string this on about 1.5 inches away from the end. I'm going to make a bend, and then I'm going to hold that around the second step of my looping pliers to form a wrap loop. I'm going to loop that around and cross the longer wire. Open it apart like you would a jump ring. Slide on your first component like that, and then clamp that loop between your pliers and make another 2 to 3 wraps with that wire. Okay. And then you can use your pliers to make sure your wraps are aligned well. And then use your flush cutters, again with the flush end towards your finished piece. Cover this piece of wire so you don't have any scraps going flying with your finger. And then tuck that end in again. So now these are connected. We are now going to slide the bead up right there against that. Take your looping pliers, hold them right against the bead. Fold across the first smaller step. Rotate your hand to hold that fold that you just made with the bigger step, the second step on the top, and loop your wire around that. So you get kind of that question mark sign there. Then you switch your hand to hold that loop with your second step back in through the loop you just created, and make a round loop like that. Then use your pliers again, clamp down the loop, and make 3 wraps. Now it's okay if you don't get this the first time. You can replay and watch it again, but we'll continue to do these same wraps for all of these beads, so you'll get some more practice here. And with each step, once you cut a wire, you want to tuck it in. So it's tucked in nicely there. Now we're going to do that with the blue one as well. So slide your blue bead on. About 1.5 inches from the end, make a bend. Flip your pliers to make a loop around the second step. Like that. Slip your previous bead on. Hold the loop in your pliers and make 2 to 3 wraps. Snip off excess wire. Make sure to hold your finger there so the fire doesn't go flying. Tuck in that end. Squeeze that in to tuck it in. Okay. And then slide the bead up against the wraps and use your first step on the other side to bend your wire. Twist your wrist to hold the second step up above and make the loop around the second step. Once you have the second step made, hold that loop again and wrap your wire 2 to 3 times. And And once you get there, snip it off with the flush side towards your finished piece and tuck the wire in. So there. Now to attach this piece, we need to do something slightly different here. So we need to make two separate components that will link this. We're going to hold that in there, then make the knot and make a loop to attach this. So to do that, I'm going to slip this on, and about 1 inch in, I'm going to make that U. And be careful, these crystals are pretty delicate, so don't press too hard. You could shatter the crystal a little bit. So we are going to cross the shorter wire over the longer one like we did with the beads. We're going to hold that loop and wrap 2 to 3 times. And you can use your second set of pliers to finish that wrap and tuck in the wire. There. And then we are going to hold that wrap, bend the wire over, and around the second step in your pliers, we are going to make the loop. And then we are going to hold that down with pliers and wrap 2 to 3 times till we get to the end. Snip off that wire and tuck that in. Okay, so we have one side made. Now we're going to do the second side, but before we can attach the second side, I'm going to slip this one on first, then I'm going to slip this second piece on, and we're going to do the same thing. Bend that wire into a U, cross the shorter wire over the longer one, hold that loop and wrap a few times. 2 to 3 is sufficient. And then just tuck that wire in. Okay. Then we are going to hold that wire, cross it over, and over the second step, make the loop. Okay. Once the loop is made, we are going to slip this back up through the loop and hold it up there. So now we have that attached on there. I'm going to hold that loop with my pliers and again wrap to close this out. Okay. And then we're going to snip the wire and tuck this in. So now we've attached the prism component to the rest of those beads. Now all we have left to do is attach these 2 beads and make the component on the top. the sun catcher done. And now with the 16 gauge wire, we're going to create this loop to hang the sun catcher. To do that, again, I'm working right off of the spool. You're going to flush cut the end of the wire. We're going to use the second step on these pliers to make the loop. So this small loop is what will attach to the sun catcher, and then the largest loop, we're going to hold this right in between the last two steps and wrap to cross the wire. And then with your flush cutter facing the component, we are going to cut that wire. And then like you would with jump rings, finagle the wire close to close that loop. And I'm just going to use my pliers to straighten it all out. Okay. There we go. And then you twist open the smaller loop and slip on your sun catcher and twist that close. And there, the sun catcher is all done, and it's beautiful. So you can make and sell these sun catchers. They are very, very popular at markets, especially in the spring and summertime. If you enjoyed making this with me today, please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me. Have a great rest of your day.